Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you're well. Today is Wednesday. It is May the 12th, and it's Rabbi Akiva Males. I hope that you're well. Today, we're going to conclude. We've been for the last, this is our third week of three-part series. We were going through Sefer Rus. We were specifically learning Sefer Rus because Rus is going to be read. That is the Megillah that is read on Shavuos. And we were going through Rus in preparation for Shavuos. And we've been using the commentary that I chanced upon this year called the Nachalas Yosef by Rabbi Lipovitz. And Rabbi Lipovitz wrote a beautiful commentary, running commentary to Megillas Rus. We've seen some of his selected comments on Perek Aleph, the first chapter, on Perek Beis, on the second chapter. And today we're going to conclude this three-part series by seeing some of his comments on Prakim Gimel and Daled, chapters 3 and 4. There are 4 chapters in total in the book of Rus, and today we're going to see some of his selected comments on Perek Gimel and Perek Daled, chapter 3 and chapter 4. So let's just review. So Rus is from the nation of Moab. Her mother-in-law is Naomi, and they had originally left Israel. Their husband, Elimelech, Rus's father-in-law, Naomi's husband, was a very wealthy man. He was a nobleman from the tribe of Yehuda, and they had left during the time of famine. It was very demoralizing for the Jewish people to see one of their leaders. He was very wealthy, he was influential, he was powerful, and when he could have helped others, he got up and left. He left with his family, his wife Naomi, and they had 2 sons, Machlon and Chilion. Those boys married girls in the land of Moab, where they had gone off to. Moab was a long-standing foe of the Jewish people, who were renowned for their inability to help Bnei Yisrael when they left Egypt. So they were seen as being a stingy people, and Chazal take note of that here is Elimelech, who was in a position to help, neglected to do so, and of all places, where does he go and pitch his tent? By the nation of Moab. So it seems like he was a fellow traveler of theirs. So Elimelech passes away in the land of Moab. His 2 sons pass away. Their wives, Rus and Orpah, who come from royal families in Moab. Initially, they start going back to Israel with their mother-in-law, Naomi. Orpah turns back to rejoin her people. Rus is absolutely dedicated committed to stick with her mother-in-law, help her in any way she can, returns with her to the land of Israel. And once they're there, they're destitute, they're penniless. They don't want to turn to their relatives for help, assistance, or handouts. So they decide to rely on the system that Hashem has put into place of matnos aniyim, of gifts for the poor, that the Torah says this is every one who owns fields has to live. It legislates that people have to leave certain parts of it for aniyim, for those who are destitute, and they decide what they're going to support themselves on. That's something which the Torah has given them rights to. They're not going to turn to others for their charity and for their mercy. And we were told that Naomi tells Rus that they've got a relative who's in a very powerful position. His name is Boaz, and it just so happens that of all the fields that Rus could have picked to go to collect some of these portions that are left aside for the poor, she ends up in Boaz's field. She meets Boaz, and Boaz tells her, I want you to keep coming back. Please don't go to any other field. This is the harvest season. There's a lot of stuff that falls. Please collect over here for your matnos aniyim, for the gifts for the poor. And he even tells his workers to discreetly drop stuff in Rus's direction so she would be able to collect and keep her dignity. Now we're going to see what happens in chapter 3. In Perek Gimel, so Naomi tells Rus, listen, you met Boaz, and he is the closest male relative of ours. Why? Because we know that in the Torah legislates a concept called yibum, which is levirate marriage, that if, let's say, you have brothers, they share a common father, one of them passes away without having children with his wife, it's a mitzvah on the other brother to marry that widow, to support her, and to try and start a family with her. And those children that will be born, it's seen as being a continuation of the dead brother's name. It's a way to make certain that their legacy is not forgotten. So when the Torah speaks of that in terms of brothers, but in the times of Tanakh, if there were no brothers, so to say, it would be the closest male relative. So Naomi tells Rus, we've got this closest male relative is going to be Boaz. You've already met him. He's already said he wants to do everything he can to help. I think it's time, if he's not getting the hint, that he ought to step up to the plate and perform yibum, levirate marriage, and marry you. I think you've got to do something a little bit bold, a little bit assertive, and really put yourself out there to let him know that is what you're interested in. Let's go. Let's get the ball rolling. So Naomi comes up with a plan. What Rus tells her is that since it's harvest season, Boaz is sleeping at night, not in his house in the city, but rather in a hut out in the field, so he can keep an eye on his belongings, an eye on his crops, on his field. So you're going to go to it, dress yourself up as nice as possible, go to that hut, and basically wake him up when you're there. Don't do anything. You're not married to him yet. Don't have relations with him or anything like that. But that'll send a strong message that all of a sudden he's sleeping and he wakes up and he sees you there. It'll let him know that, okay, you're interested in taking this to the next level. He ought to be stepping up to the plate and performing levirate marriage with you. That's the plan that Naomi sets Rus up on. Now we're going to jump in. What happens when Boaz wakes up? He wakes up in the middle of the night and he sees there resting near his feet at the end of his bed is this young maiden. And he says, who are you? And she says, I'm Rus. And she says, I'm here because I'm to send the message that you're supposed to spread your blanket over me, meaning that you're supposed to marry me. I want more. I don't want to just be coming and collecting the gleanings here in the field. I'd like you to step up to the plate and perform levirate marriage and to marry me. So Boaz tells her, I understand. I want to help in any way I can. I'm just going to read the psukim and then we'll jump into Rabbi Lipovitz and we'll see where he's going. So Boaz tells her as follows. He says to her, it's in Perek Gimel. I don't have the psukim on the sheet, so I'm going to read to it. It's Yud Aleph, that's verse 11. He says, V'ata biti, and now my girl, my daughter, Al tiri, don't be scared. Kol asher tomru esela, everything that you have asked of me, I will follow through on. Ki odea kol sharami, everybody in the gates of my people knows, ki eshes chayalat, everyone knows that you are a valorous woman. Yud Beis 12, V'ata, and now, ki amnam, ki goel anochi, true, I am a redeemer. I am a very close male relative of your deceased husband. V'gam yesh goel karav mimeni. However, there's someone even closer related than I am. So we've got to give him the opportunity first. So Boaz says to her, in Yud Gimel, Lini alayla, sleep here the rest of the night, at the foot of the bed where you've been. V'yoba boker, and I'll be in the morning. I'm going to pursue this to see if the other guy wants to marry you. Imi golech tov. If he decides to redeem you, then fine. You go, let him do that. V'im lo yachpos legolech. If he does not want to redeem you, he doesn't want to marry you, I take an oath that I will redeem you. I will marry you. Shichvi ad boker. But don't leave now in the middle of the night. It's not safe outside. It's the middle of the night. There's no street lights. Stay here until the morning where it's safest. And then the pasuk says, "Vatishkav marglosav ad boker." She did just exactly like he said. She slept near his feet until the morning. Vatakam b'terem yakir ishes re'eu. She got up in the morning before anyone else is up, before anyone would recognize. So there's daybreak, so it's safe to go outside, but before anyone's out, so no one will see her. And that was what he said, Vayomer rather, and he had said the reason why she's leaving at the crack of dawn is because Boaz had told her, Al yivadaki ba isha gored. It's best wait till it's light so it's safe, but at the same token, don't wait too long because we don't want anyone to know that you're here. One more pasuk, Tesvav. Vayomer, before she left, he says to her, Havia mitpachas asher alayich. Bring forward, you have like a shawl or you have some type of a garment that you're wearing, hold it out, hold one end of it, she holds it, he measures out 6 measurements of barley, he gives her those 6 measurements of barley, and she takes it and she goes back to the city. She goes back to Nami and tells her mother-in-law Nami exactly what happened and that how the situation is going to unfold. That's what we read about in Perek Gimel. So let's see what Rabbi Lipovitz has to say. So we're on page 1. He He says, it seems that there's nothing else to talk about. The conversation between Boaz and Rus is over. Now he's going to say, but there's something very important we have to take note of. Immediately after Boaz promises him, yes, there's a closer relative. I just got to check with him if he wants to marry you first. So she should leave in the middle of the night. Why does she stay? She should really leave in the middle of the night. Why? To protect Boaz's dignity. It's going to be a scandal if people find out that she's there in the middle of the night, this young maiden who's there, and here's this old respected shofet, this judge of Israel. If people find out he's having a sleepover guest there, it's going to be scandalous. So after he's guaranteed her that I'm going to check in the morning to see if that closer relative wants to marry you, she ought to pick up and leave to save him from suffering any indignity. Milaz abrios, from all of the rumor mongers. And this would prevent any kind of desecration of God's name, that one of the shoftim, one of the great judges, leaders of Israel, the people, can you imagine what the blogs, what the tabloids will say? But on the other side of the equation, could Boaz allow? He cares about her. Could he allow her to leave in the middle of the night, to go out in the dark? Ben asados, to go walking home in the middle of all the fields. Makom shalula litakel beprutzim. She might run into lowlifes who might harm her. So Boaz has a choice to make. She can stay here, but then there's a chance my reputation could be shot, or I could send her home now, but then she could suffer some indignity. So what does Boaz do? This is going to reveal the character of Boaz. Al kapos hamaznayim, on the scale, hunchu kvoda ukvodo. On one side of the scale, he's got to worry about her dignity. If she should leave in the middle of the night, she might get assaulted. On the other side is kvodo. If she stays around till the morning, people find out and he'll be embarrassed. Which one is more important? It seems like Rus is saying, I'm ready to leave in the middle of the night. But despite the fact that Boaz is so scared about how this could really shoot himself in the foot, how he could suffer dignity, despite the fact that he's worried about the potential Chilul Hashem, he pleads with her and says, Lini halayla, please don't go. I'm worried about your safety. Shichvi araboker, stay here until daybreak. Even though I've got so much to lose, I'm more worried about your safety. Humevater alakol, he's willing to give up his entire name. He's willing to let himself be the subject of all the scandalous reporting and everything the tabloids are going to say. Bishvil kvoda shorus, he's more concerned about her welfare. Very similar to what you find what Chazal teach us in the incident of Tamar, who is at an earlier stage. That was Yehuda. Remember, he had a daughter-in-law, Tamar, and he unknowingly had been intimate with her. And when she was going to be taken out to be executed, it seemed like she was unfaithful. So at the last minute, when she sends the message to Yehuda, you were the father. So Yehuda says, "Oh my gosh, he's right. Sadka mimeni. She's more righteous than I am." And he mans up. He admits what happened. So he wanted to save Tamar from suffering, even though it would totally shoot his own reputation. So that's what he's saying here. Boaz is following in the steps of his great grandfather Yehuda. That says that just when Tamar was being taken out to be judged, the Chazal say, it's better for a person to throw themselves into a fiery furnace, not to embarrass another person. So he learned this lesson from his great-grandfather, from Zaidi. He learned it from Yehuda, that Yehuda was willing to shoot his own reputation to save the dignity of Tamar. So Boaz says, I've got to do the same thing. If I say to Rus, leave now so I don't get embarrassed, but she may suffer. How can I have that on my conscience? It's better that she should wait till daybreak, send her out when it's safe to go, before people will see what's going on. But even though I might suffer, but that'll guarantee her safety. So he's following in the steps of Zayda Yehuda. So he says, when it says that he says, stay here. So what was he doing all night? What was Boaz doing all night? So he was davening. He was begging God for heavenly mercy. The sages tell us in the Medrash, that entire night, when he told Rus, stay here and sleep at my feet till the morning, what was Boaz doing that night? Boaz was laying on his face on the ground, davening, pleading with God and saying, Ribon Olam, Master of the world, it's well known, it's clear before you, Shalom Agatiba. I have not sinned. I didn't touch her. I didn't do anything wrong. May it be your will, and let nobody find out that she came here and that this should be all scandalous. And the name of heaven should not be diminished as a result of me. So meaning, what the way Rabbi Lipovitz is painting this, I never really thought about this before. I never saw Boaz treated in this fashion. What he's saying is Boaz is a massive risk taker. He's looking out to protect Rus, even though he's putting himself, his reputation in peril. He says, but it's more important that Rus should be safe. But what is he doing the whole night? He's davening to Hashem, saying, please, I'm only looking out for her. That's the only reason I told her to stay. I'm not going to touch her. I'm not doing anything. Please don't let this backfire. Don't let my reputation be shot. And don't let a chilul Hashem, don't let a desecration of God's name result from all this, that people are going to say, look what a judge of Israel did. So that's how he's davening. But again, why did he take this risk? He did this to save Rus from suffering any harm, any indignity, from getting assaulted, anything. That was what was on Boaz's mind. And in doing such, he was following the footsteps of his great-grandfather Yehuda. I thought this is such a beautiful insight what Rabbi Lipovitz does with this. And again, this had never hit me before. Now he continues, Rabbi Lipovitz, and he says, what did he say to her before she left? Take that shawl, hold one end, and I'm going to put some barley in it. So look, he continues on this point. And he says as follows, bring me that shawl. He measures out 6 measures of barley. He says, think about what's going on. It's daybreak. Dawn is finally struck. Pretty soon, people are going to be out. And it's like the earth is burning under Boaz's feet. There's nothing he wants more than to get out of this risky situation. He wants to get her on her way. He doesn't want anyone to know she was there. But what does he do? Just when it's time for her to leave, he says, no, not so fast. We have one more thing that needs to happen. He slows her down to give her 6 measures of barley. And he spends time on this. He's measuring out. He didn't just throw it in and say, let's run. He's measuring this out. Bring the shawl, hold one end of it, she holds one end, and he's measuring, he gives it back to her. It's like, my God, panic, get her out of there. And he's not worried at all that maybe someone will see what's going on. And what will they say? What does that look like if they see Boaz in the crack of dawn and there's a young woman about to leave and he's paying her? What does that look like? The Irananu Abrios, everyone is going to start slandering him. It's like he's paying a prostitute her wages at the crack of dawn before she leaves. That's what this looks like. Why is he putting, you talk about him being a risk taker, that at night he told her, stay here because I don't want you to get damaged out in the field. I'm more worried about you than I am about me. Okay, but now it's dawn. Get her out of there. But before she goes, I have to give her this gift. But don't you see what that looks like? Why are you taking that risk? Certainly he was worried, but there was something even more important. Shalamano Kedaya called that that this made it all worth it. What was it? My matar is it? What was the goal? This is what Rus told Naomi earlier. He told me, I do not want you going back empty-handed to your mother-in-law. I care about your mother-in-law. She's a relative. Her husband was a relative of mine. She's a widow. She's poor. I can't have you leave without bringing something to her. So even though this looks terrible, he's more concerned about taking care of an almana. He's more concerned. What a limud, what a lesson this is that so many times we're thinking, I've got more important things to do than to help out this person who's downtrodden, to help out this person who's vulnerable. Who could have had a better excuse in the world than Boaz to say, get out of here? This looks awful, what's going on. But Boaz says, I can't throw her out. I have to help her mother-in-law. She's my relative. She's an almana. She's lost her husband. She's all by herself. I have to help her. Even though if someone sees this, they're going to totally misunderstand what's going on. I can't let this opportunity go. At the most dangerous moment that could spell doom to Boaz's whole career, for all of his honor, Mamado, his standing, as being a leader of the Jewish people. What was he thinking? He's got clarity of mind. Losa Almana, for that one widow, for Nami. Shakula, who's all by herself. Asher Nosra Sham Lavada, she's all by herself. And he's nervous. Oh, her daughter-in-law shouldn't come back empty-handed. I've got to. She has sustenance. What? This is wild appreciation just to understand who was Boaz. These are two amazing insights from Rabbi Lipovitz, just helping us understand the stature of Boaz. And this also ought to make all of us think next time a chesed comes our way and we can help someone who's vulnerable, what excuse could we possibly have not to get involved? No one had a better excuse than Boaz. Nobody. Boaz says, Chas v'shalom. I bet I wouldn't step up to the plate and help. Chas v'shalom. God forbid. I've got to do something. Amazing. All right. I want to share with you some comments from Rabbi Lipovitz in Perek Daled, the 4th chapter. Now, in Perek Daled, what happens is the Perek begins. I'll read you the psukim. The Perek begins. It says, Boaz Allah Hashar. Boaz goes to the gate of the city. That's where the court would meet, by the entryway to the city. Vayeshev Sham, he sits down, he takes his place. Go el over, and then that close relative, who was the potential redeemer, that he said was even closer related to Elimelech than he was, that guy comes by. Asher Diber Boaz, the one that Boaz had spoken about, and he tells him, "No, I want you to sit down." Ploni Almoni. Ploni Almoni is like saying John Doe. It doesn't even give us this close relative's name. It's like he didn't earn to have his name there because he walked away from this from Rus. So he sees that close relative come by. He says, "No, have a seat." And he tells this relative, we've got our relative Elimelech. He had these sons, Machlon and Chilion, and one of them was married to Rus. She's now returned. She's a righteous woman. But there's the fields that belong to Elimelech, Machlon and Chilion. We've got to make sure that they stay in the family, but it's a connection. If you want the fields, you also got to marry that daughter-in-law. Do you want to do this? And the relative says, no, I'm too scared. It's going to look bad. I'm nervous about this idea of marrying a girl who's got this Moabite ancestry in her. It's going to make me look, I'll lose my standing. I'm walking away from this. At which point it's Boaz's deal. Boaz is the one who can marry her. And the pasuk says, "Vayikach asara anashim miziknei yair vayom yeshivu po vayeshevu." He takes 10 zikanim. He takes 10 elders. 10 anashim, he takes 10 men who are from the Ziknei Yair, from the elders of the city, and he has them sit down. So before he enters into this conversation with Ploni Almoni, with this close relative, before he has this talk with him, asking, do you want to marry Rus or not, he first sits these 10 people down. So what Rabbi Lipovitz is going to comment on is that, look how a man of action Boaz is. He gets right to it. He told Rus he was going to get on top of this. That's exactly what happens. As soon as the day begins, he goes there and he grabs these 10 men, and then he grabs, before he even engages the conversation with Ploni Almoni, he makes sure he's got this minion of people there. So let's see what Rabbi Lipovitz does with this. Boaz goes to the gate. The Etzem Reshiso Shel Perek, at the very beginning of this fourth and final Perek of the chapter of the Megillah, on Uroim we see at Kamat Sudko Divrei Nami, how right the words of Nami was, how she described Boaz. She said about Boaz, Kilo Yishko Reish, the man will not sit still, he won't be quiet until he follows through on his words. I know Boaz, and Boaz is the man. If he said something, he's going to get right to it. The same Boaz that we described in the last chapter has got such an amazing presence of mind, and he's patient, and he's going to make certain that he's not stepping on anyone's feeling, and he's going out of his way to respect everyone's dignity. Now he's as light as an eagle, to take care of what he's got to do. He's acting with massive alacrity. He's not going to delay at all. You may have looked at him in the last chapter and said, wow, that's a person who's indecisive. God forbid. He knows exactly what needs to be done, and he's going to do it. They left the field at daybreak before anyone was going to be up. They were out of there at the crack of dawn to walk back to the city. As soon as he gets a chance, he walks right to the gate. The first thing, he doesn't take care of checking his post office box first or anything, or checking out any messages that came in. He goes right to that gate where the court would meet. He's Zrizim Makdimim, because we have this concept that people are Zrizim, they're Zaras, there's someone who acts with alacrity, they get moving right away, early in the day as possible. The same direction you see with his great-grandson, David. David also was a man of action who did not delay at all. Asher nishba v'nadar ki lo yiten shina le'inav. David HaMelech had taken an oath that he would not let himself sleep ad shimatza makom Hashem, until he found a place that was fitting that the Beis HaMikdash, the temple, could be built. That even though you're going to see soon, he couldn't build it himself, but he plotted out the location, made the blueprints. He did everything he could in his lifetime to plan for the building of the Beis HaMikdash, for the temple in Jerusalem. And what do we find in Sefer Shmuel? That God has to come to Nasan HaNavi, Nathan the prophet, on the night. On that night, Sheyelach v'yimna as David, to tell him, you have to go immediately and tell David he's got to drop his plans. David was ready to build the Beis HaMikdash. It's not enough that he just planned it. He was ready to go through it and build it. And in God's great scheme of things, he says, no, it's not supposed to be built by David. It's supposed to be built by his son Shlomo. So he tells Nasan HaNavi, you better get him tonight. What do Chazal say? The sages say in the Medrash that God said to Nasan, the Navi, to the prophet, Nasan, the man that I'm sending you to, he's very quick in the work he needs to do. He's going to get it done if you don't get there fast. Get there fast before he goes out and hires workers. He's going to do it immediately. He doesn't dilly-dally. Once he's made up his mind, he's going to get the job done. And you have to give him the message that it's not your role to build the temple for me, rather your son's going to do that. So he's saying that this nida, this character trait that David exhibited about being such a Zariz, someone who acts promptly and with alacrity, he got this from the Zayde. He got this from Boaz. Lule Baal of Nasan HaNavi. So what is it telling us? That if had Nasan HaNavi not come to Balayla that night, David makdim v'socher polim. David would have beat him to the punch and would have started already hiring workers to start the job of building the Beis HaMikdash. Zrizus Gedol Azul Dvar Mitzvah Haisalol David Yerusha Misabo Boaz. Where did David get this from? He got it as an inheritance from his grandfather, from his Zayda, from Boaz. Say Ray, and go and see Archa Shel Zrizus. Look just how the value of Zrizus, of acting with alacrity, is. The Masoret Chazal, according to our tradition from the sages, Hare Meis Boaz Bo Salayla. How long were Boaz and Rus actually married for? They consummated the marriage, and then it seems like he died that very night. Boaz, he acted fast, and thank God he acted fast. He didn't know it, but he didn't have much time left on this earth. In Cain ilmale zrizuso, had it not been that he was acting with such with quickness and with alacrity, lechaloses davar hayom, to get this matter taken care of today, lo haya kolinya nesuin Rus, the whole issue of marrying Rus never would have come to be. Yotzei Paul never would have come to fruition. L'chamaim Ramzalak, what the sages tell us, al tomar k'she'efna eshna. Don't say in Pirkei Avos, in the chapters of our fathers, it says a person's attitude should not be, yeah, when I have time, I'll carve out. When I have time later on in life, I'll find time to learn Torah. Don't say that. Shemaloti panem. Maybe I'll never have that time. Who says? Who says I'm going to live till 120? We don't know. So if I've got to carve out time now, I shouldn't say, okay, after I retire, I'll find the time. Who says? I've got to carve out that time now. So that's what we learned from Boaz. So we see at the beginning of Perek Dalet, at the 4th chapter, how critical it was. It's being mishabeach. It's praising Boaz that he acted quickly, and it's good that he acted quickly. He didn't even realize it, that he didn't have much time left. Fascinating. Let's see the next one. It says, this is on the same theme. It said that he took 10 men. So this is more about Boaz, you see here. Lafi Hezber Chazal, according to what the sages say, why did he take these 10 elders? Why was it so important to have the crowd of million of people there? He wanted to clarify for them the halacha, amoni velo amonis. He wanted to say, why is it mutter? Why is it permissible for me to marry Rus, or for any Jew to marry her? Ploni Almoni says, I don't want to get involved. She's from Moab. So now when Boaz says, I'm going to get involved, he wants to make it very clear, everyone understands why it's halachically okay. And he teaches them the halacha of that when the Torah says an Ammoni and a Moavi are not allowed to enter, an Ammonite and a Moabite are not allowed to enter, the Jewish people cannot convert. Who's that talking about? Ammoni, a male Ammonite. V'lo Ammonis, not a female Ammonite. She could enter. Moavi, the Torah says a male Moabite can't enter. V'lo Moavis, it never said a female Moabite can't enter. So therefore, it's okay for Rus to be a Giyares. It's okay for her to convert. That's what he wanted to tell. So he wanted to share this halacha, but he wanted to share it birabim. He wanted to share it in a crowd to a minyan to make sure that word would get out and publicize this. This shouldn't be just his immediate circle understands why it's halachically okay. He wants to make certain all of Klal Yisrael is going to know it, and it filters down. It was so important to have a minyan of 10, also to have Sheva brachas. So there was two reasons he wanted to put this minyan together. Number one, because to spread the halacha that it's okay to marry, to take as a giyores, as a convert, a Moabite woman or an Ammonite woman. But number two, there's a wedding that's going to take place very quick, and we need to have Sheva brachas. We got to have those 7 blessings, so we need a minyan. We need to have 10 men. No selfless result. So this is another indication of just how he acted with alacrity. He's getting this conversation going with the relative, with Ploni Almoni, before he knows what he's going to say, and he's already planning, regardless of how the conversation goes, I want to get the wedding on the road. So we got to have a minyan ready to act. He doesn't even know who's going to have the wedding. Who's going to marry Rus? Is it going to be a Goel, a Bishvil Agol? Is it going to be for that close relative? Or Bishvil Atzmo, for himself? I don't even know who it's going to be for, but I'm planning. We got to have the minyan ready. So he's saying again, you see this midah, this character trait of Boaz, how he was such a zariz. He was someone who acted with alacrity. He didn't dilly-dally. He didn't push stuff off for later. He was concerned to make sure everything was in place to get the job done. Okay, now let's see one more paragraph. Another reason why he wanted the 10 elders there was not just for the, because he was acquiring Rus and acquiring the land. So for legal reasons, he wants the word to get out now. Okay, so the land that used to belong to Elimelech's family now goes to him. Okay, that's one issue, but there was something more important here. He wanted the Askamas Hazakanim. He wanted the elders. He wanted their agreement. In other words, he just is teaching everyone this new halacha that a woman from Moab, a woman from Ammon is allowed to enter the Kal Hashem, is allowed to convert and join the Jewish people. He wants to make sure they know it, that the word is going to get out. And if you got any issues with it, let's argue it out now. Let's fight it out now. Let's make certain that we're all in agreement with this. Because to the first glance, this looks very bizarre. This elderly judge is marrying this young woman who's coming from Moab. There was good reason to fear. People are going to just start slandering him. People are going to say that there is something invalid about this Rus woman, Ploni Almoni. The same way Ploni Almoni, that close relative, was nervous about getting involved because Rus came from Moab. So maybe the rest of Klal Yisrael is going to have those feelings. So he says, let's get it out on the table now. Let's duke it out now. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. He wanted to publicly explain the halacha. First, he wanted to get the facts out. That the only intent, I know it looks weird, I'm this 80-year-old shofet, and I'm marrying this young woman. I want to get straight. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because the Torah says it's an important thing that if you have this fellow who died without children, there's a way to carry his legacy on. And he also wanted to do his best to spread the halacha that he just brought to light, that if a woman was coming from Moab, she was allowed in. It's just the males who are not allowed into the Jewish people, but the women are allowed in. They had kama yanachot sadavar, and you know how important it was. What do we see? After all these efforts that Boaz made, even generations later, there was a fellow by the name of Doeg Ha'adomi. He comes up in Sefer Shmuel. You'll see that's where he comes up, and I believe he's mentioned in Malachim as well. And Doeg Adomi, he was someone who was doing his best to try to invalidate David as being a valid member of the Jewish people. So he's just one person. But could you imagine had Boaz not taken these efforts, how many more people there would have been who were besmirching David's lineage? So, but if, in fact, that generations later, Doeg was doing this. Okay, he's just one. But imagine had it not been for Boaz's efforts, how many more there would have been. Who knows what could have happened? Had he married Rus, just made a shotgun wedding, gone off to Vegas to some chapel and just married her that way. Instead of doing that, he brought a crowd together. He said, let's fight out this halacha. Let's talk about this halacha. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. And then you're here to be the minion for Sheva Brachas. That's the way Boaz planned this. He was thinking ahead. So what does the crowd say after they agree to the fact, all these Zakanim, these elders, they agree that everything Boaz is saying is true. It's okay for him to marry her. And he's the one who deserves to have, the share in the properties that he's going to get that belong to the family of Elimelech. So the pasuk says in Yud Aleph in that chapter, Vayomru kol ha'am asher b'shar, all of the people, meaning it seems like once people saw a minion around 10 Zakanim, a whole huge crowd gathered around. So everybody heard what was happening. So he says, Kolam, all of the people, Asher Bashar, who had gathered in the gate area, Vazakanim Edim, and Vazakanim, and also that minion of elders, they said, Edim, they all said, we are witnesses. God should make this woman who's coming into your house, who's becoming your wife, she should be Kerachel Ucheleya. She should be treated by the Jewish people in the manner in which we treat Rachel and Leah, Asher Banu Shteim as Beis Yisrael, that they merited building the Jewish people. And she should prosper in Ephras and crush shame in Beis Lechem and earn a beautiful name in Beis Lechem. One more pasuk Yud Beis. The Beischa in your house should be like Beis Peretz, like the house of Peretz. It should be as illustrious as Peretz. Peretz was the son that Yehuda had with Tamar, his daughter-in-law. So he says they should be like Peretz, Asher Yolda Tamar LeYehuda, that Tamar gave birth to Yehuda. Minat Zera Asher Yiten Hashem L'chem Min HaRazos. In other words, the children that you have together with Rus should be as a gift to the Jewish people and should be as righteous as those children that Yehuda and Tamar had together. Now it's Peretz. So let's just see what Rabbi Lipovitz does here. Beautiful. In this general communal agreement that everyone is saying we're okay with this marriage and we give our blessing from all the people and from the elders, you can only imagine, you could feel the happiness and the excitement that was in the air. Everyone is so happy for this blessed shidduch, for this great marriage that's taken place. And when you look at what they responded, giving these brachas to be like Rachel and Leah and Peretz, you also get a feel from this that they're offering comfort to Boaz, and they're saying to him, we are witnesses before God and before all generations. That this, what you are doing now, it is no less Yaakov v'Rachel, Yehuda v'Tamar. It is no less lofty than the marriage of Yaakov and Rachel and the marriage of Yehuda and Tamar. If from an outsider's perspective, there's something looked a little fishy about those marriages as well. And people could have started investigating. Yaakov marries these two sisters, and then Yehuda ends up with his daughter-in-law. But what are we saying? We're blessing you. Is that you should have the same righteous results from your actions as they had from theirs. From Yaakov marrying Rachel and Leah, he built all the tribes, all the Shvatim, all the Beis Yisrael. And from Yehuda and Tamar, they had parents. That's where the dynasty of Shevet Yehuda, of the rulership and the kingship, all stems from. So they say to him, you should have the same blessing. This should be like Rachel and Leah, Asher Banu Shteim as Beis Yisrael. Rachel and Leah together built Beis Yisrael. So what does he say? Nobody said, you know what? We're going to turn down this shidduch. We think it's a bad shidduch of Rachel and Leah because look at their yichus, look at their pedigree. What kind of a oisvarf, what kind of a loser father, a criminal father they have. Shavianaya Lavan our Rabbi. Her father was that cheating guy Lavan. Asher Bikesh Lakrakol, who would go on at a later stage that he had plans to decimate and to destroy Bnei Yisrael. But no one said, okay, we should invalidate Rachel and Leah. They're not right. They're not worthy of entering the Jewish people because they got such a nasty father. Despite the fact they had a rotten father, the daughters were so righteous in their own right that through them they merited to build the Bnei Yisrael. That's what we say about Rus. Even though she comes from a nation that we're not supposed to accept into our midst, the people of Moab. So he says, nonetheless, we're blessing you that despite her yichus, she should be as blessed as Rachel and Leah was. That's a beautiful spin on things, why they're bringing up Rachel and Leah. And now he says also, we got to mention, the Chazal say a beautiful thing. The Chazal, our sages say that Boaz said something to Rus earlier. Kishamra Rus said earlier when they were in the field, and she says, when he gave her permission to keep collecting stuff in his field, she said to him, I should just be treated like one of your maidservants. I don't need to be treated so nicely. Hey Shivla, according to Chazal, he answers back, Chas v'shalom. God forbid, you're not a maidservant. Here's the play on words. Elamina imahos. You're as righteous as one of our matriarchs. Look how his words were fulfilled. Ha'am hikir barus. The whole nation recognizes Rus's personality. They recognize her character. She domel Rachel v'Leah. She is as righteous as Rachel and Leah. Lahamin mechadash es Am Yisrael. To build a renewed Jewish people. Someone could have said, what do you mean? We're already established. What more do we want? This shows that they were waiting. We were waiting for someone to come in and to correct our deficiencies. So we could be like a new building. So we need someone to renovate Bnei Yisrael. And we recognize, Rus, you are that infusion that we needed. So in truth, this couple merited that from them they brought about David HaMelech. That he's on the same scale, on the same level as Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, our patriarchs. So we see how beautiful this is. And let's just finish this up. This last page 4. So he says in closing the Megillah, the Navi is opening a window, like a hatch door, to give us a view into the past of the Jewish people. To get an appreciation in the worldview of the Jewish people in that time. This is the first time that a convert had attempted to join the Jewish people. A righteous woman convert had attempted to join from a nation that was viewed as being very miserly and was viewed as being despised. That they despised Moab more than all the other nations that surrounded them. The Torah speaks straight out about how we're prohibited to allow in converts from that nation. Again, Boaz taught us that only meant male converts. This created a wall, a barrier between these two nations. Our sages tell us that when the first base of Megillas was destroyed, the Moabites were almost rejoicing about the fact that the Torah was destroyed. They hated the Torah because in the Torah is something really derogatory to the Moabite nation. And about this Gioris, about this righteous woman convert, as we said earlier, Doeg Adomi was spreading bad rumors that she wasn't a true member of the Jewish people, even as far later as when David was around. Rus Ba'atzma and Rus herself, Rus couldn't understand. Why are you recognizing me and treating me so nicely? She astonishedly asked, why have I found favor in your eyes? To recognize me. I'm a foreigner. Even Nami was a little bit worried about this. Initially, she didn't want her to come to Israel with her. She's saying she's coming from such a far background. Who says she can come in and join us? But what do we see by the end when the whole nation and there's a kingdom, everyone agree and they give their blessing to the shidduch and they bless her, she should be like Rachel and Leah and produce kids like parrots. What do we see? By the agreement of the entire nation and its elders, something that's even hard to imagine. Not only do they accept her, but they equate her, Ima Imos, Rachel Valeah, Vim Tamar, Amur Semes. They're putting her on the same pedestal as the greatest Jewish women who ever lived. So this is astonishing. Not only did they say, okay, we'll let her in, and we will glorify her and raise her up and say, we see in you the same midos, the same character traits as we saw in our greatest matriarchs. Tamar had such great character traits with Yehuda that they produced parrots that all the Nesiim were from that union. All the princes were from that union. And when Boaz, and when is this all taking place? After she had even snuck in that night prior to this into the hut where Boaz was, where people may have thought less of her. It looks very promiscuous, but because for anyone who didn't know what was really going on. Rus herself was nervous about, oh my God, people are going to hate me for this. And Boaz had to comfort her and say, Al Tiri, you've got nothing to worry about. Not only is the nation not going to hate you, everyone's going to shower heaping amounts of praise and honor on you. What did she do to deserve all this? What did they all see in Rus? The only explanation is that which Boaz himself said earlier. Everybody sees and everybody recognizes that you are a valorous woman. You are a tzaddikas. Ha'ideal shalo. Everyone saw about in Rus, everybody saw this incredible sense idealism that Boaz had said, Eshes Chayil. You are a valorous woman. With all of the explanations to such a title. Knowing, and it was so clear as day that she was an Eshes Chayil, that outweighed all those other counter arguments and calculations, Shayu ben Am Yisrael and Moab, whatever hostility we had with the nation of Moab, and to crown this righteous convert woman with the greatest crown of glory. And you see this also in the bracha that the nation, everyone, there's a kingdom, everyone gave to Boaz. With the offspring that God should bless you with this young woman. Persha Chazal, our sages understand, that means Amru. They said, all of the children that God gives you from this point on, you should only be from this woman, from no other wife, from this woman. That is how great all of the Bnei Yisrael were able to recognize the fineness and the qualities, the character of this woman. Not only does this speak volumes about how great Rus was, but this speaks great volumes about the lofty levels of Bnei Yisrael, that everybody was able to see this. It was so apparent and recognizable. Everyone could see this. This speaks volumes about Bnei Yisrael at that time. I thought this is beautiful. I really enjoyed this commentary of the Nachlas Yosef, Rabbi Lipovitz, on Megillas Rus. I'm so happy that I stumbled on it this year. I hope you enjoyed learning together with me. I hope we all enjoyed learning together some of the commentary of Rabbi Lipovitz on Megillas Rus. And I hope this will enhance your appreciation of Rus, of Boaz, of all the characters in the Megillah. And hopefully this will enable each and every one of us to get more out of Megillas Rus this year as we read it on Shavuos. I'm going to stop the recording.